The dark side of being a good person, Jung's shadow revealed. What if your greatest moral strength is actually your biggest psychological weakness? What if your kindness is not always kindness? What if your patience is sometimes fear? What if your generosity is a silent attempt to earn love? And what if the person who is always calm, agreeable, helpful, and forgiving is carrying more hidden anger than anyone else in the room? We are taught to become good people. We learn to be polite, considerate, selfless, and emotionally controlled. We are rewarded when we make life easier for others. We are praised when we suppress our anger, forgive quickly, avoid confrontation, and place other people's needs before our own. Over time, goodness can become more than a moral value. It can become an identity. I am the understanding one. I am the reliable one. I am not selfish. I never get angry. I would never hurt anyone. But Carl Jung understood something deeply unsettling about human nature. The more tightly we identify with being good, the more psychological energy we may invest in hiding everything that contradicts that identity. Anger, jealousy, ambition, sexual desire, the need for recognition, the desire for power, the capacity to say no, the instinct to protect ourselves. These qualities do not disappear because we condemn them. They simply retreat into what Jung called the shadow, and from there they begin to influence us without our permission. The persona of the good person. Jung used the word persona to describe the social face we present to the world. The persona is not necessarily false. It is the part of us that has learned how to function within society. A manager develops a professional persona. A teacher adopts an authoritative but supportive persona. A parent may present strength even when feeling uncertain. The persona becomes dangerous when we mistake it for the whole personality. The person who has built an identity around being good may become psychologically dependent on maintaining that image. They must appear patient even when they feel mistreated. They must appear generous even when they are exhausted. They must remain agreeable even when something inside them is shouting no. Their goodness becomes a performance they are no longer allowed to interrupt. This is the foundation of what is sometimes called the nice guy or nice girl syndrome. Such people may rarely express their needs directly. Instead, they hope their kindness will eventually be rewarded. They give, but secretly expect appreciation. They agree, but silently hope someone will notice their discomfort. They avoid conflict, but internally keep a record of every sacrifice. They say, "It is fine," when it is not fine. They say, "I do not mind," when resentment is already forming. Their kindness may be genuine, but it is mixed with an unspoken contract. I will be good to you, and in return, you must value me. I will never disappoint you, and in return, you must never reject me. I will suppress my needs, and in return, you must somehow know what those needs are. The problem is that nobody else has seen or agreed to this contract. When the expected reward does not arrive, the good person feels betrayed. The return of the shadow. The shadow does not remain silent forever. Anger that cannot be expressed directly may become sarcasm. A person who cannot say no may deliberately become unreliable. Someone who refuses to admit jealousy may constantly criticize the person they envy. A person who believes selfishness is unacceptable may give endlessly, then punish others with guilt. The good person may withdraw affection, delay important tasks, make cutting jokes, or respond with cold silence. They may insist that nothing is wrong while making everyone around them feel that something is terribly wrong. This is passive aggressiveness. It allows anger to escape without the conscious personality having to admit, "I am angry." The individual can continue believing in their own innocence while the shadow acts on their behalf. At other times, the repression produces a sudden outburst. A patient employee explodes during a minor meeting. A devoted partner abruptly ends a relationship. A helpful friend disappears without explanation. A quiet parent erupts over something insignificant. To observers, the reaction appears excessive. But the explosion is rarely about the immediate event. It is the accumulated force of every boundary that was never established, every objection that was swallowed, and every need that was treated as morally unacceptable. Jung associated this reversal with enantiodromia, the tendency of an extreme psychological position to turn into its opposite. Extreme selflessness can become hidden selfishness. Extreme patience can become uncontrollable rage. Extreme humility can conceal a powerful hunger for recognition. Extreme moral purity can produce secret fascination with everything the person condemns. The psyche seeks balance. When one side of the personality dominates conscious life, its opposite gathers strength in the unconscious. Eventually, the rejected side returns. Why repression fails. Denying anger does not make us peaceful. It makes us unconscious of our anger. Denying selfishness does not make us selfless. It makes us less honest about the ways we pursue our own interests. Denying aggression does not make us harmless. It prevents us from choosing how and when to use our strength. This distinction is crucial. A person who knows they are capable of anger can express dissatisfaction before it becomes hatred. A person who accepts that they have personal needs can establish boundaries before resentment develops. A person who recognizes their desire for influence can pursue leadership responsibly instead of manipulating people indirectly. But a person who believes, "I am never angry," has surrendered conscious control over anger. The emotion now belongs to the shadow. This is why highly moral people can sometimes behave with surprising cruelty. Their moral identity makes honest self-examination difficult. Because they cannot imagine themselves as aggressive, jealous, controlling, or selfish, they must find another explanation for their behavior. They were provoked. They were misunderstood. They were only trying to help. The other person was ungrateful. The shadow protects itself through justification. Projection, seeing our darkness in others. One of the shadow's favorite hiding places is another person. When we cannot accept a quality within ourselves, we may become unusually disturbed when we see it in someone else. The person who denies their ambition may condemn successful people as arrogant. The person who represses anger may describe every assertive person as aggressive. The person who cannot acknowledge selfish desires may become obsessed with exposing selfishness in others. The person who secretly wants attention may feel intense contempt for anyone who openly seeks recognition. This is projection. We do not merely observe the other person's behavior. We load that person with qualities we have refused to recognize in ourselves. Our emotional reaction becomes much larger than the situation requires. This does not mean that every criticism is projection. Some people really are dishonest, aggressive, or selfish. The important question is why a particular quality produces such intense emotional fascination. Why can you not stop thinking about it? Why does this person disturb you so deeply? What freedom are they expressing that you have forbidden within yourself? Sometimes, what we hate in others is not simply their darkness. It is their permission to possess a quality we have been forced to bury. The trap of moral perfection. The need to be good often begins as a survival strategy. A child may learn that love is available only when they are obedient, helpful, quiet, or emotionally convenient. They become skilled at reading the room. They anticipate other people's needs. They hide disappointment. They become mature too quickly. Eventually, they may receive admiration for being unusually considerate. But beneath that considerate persona is a frightened belief. If I become difficult, I will no longer be loved. This person does not avoid conflict because they are naturally peaceful. They avoid it because disagreement feels like abandonment. They do not help only from generosity. They may also help because being needed feels safer than being known. They do not forgive because healing has occurred. They forgive quickly because anger threatens their identity. Their goodness has become a prison. Integration over perfection. Jungian psychology does not ask us to become less moral. It asks us to become more conscious. Shadow integration does not mean acting on every selfish, aggressive, or destructive impulse. It means recognizing that these impulses belong to us and accepting responsibility for how we express them. Integration gives anger a language. It turns rage into a boundary. It gives selfishness a mature form. It allows us to rest, protect our time, and acknowledge our needs. It transforms aggression into courage. It gives us the strength to confront injustice, make difficult decisions, and defend what matters. It transforms envy into information. Instead of condemning the person we envy, we can ask what their life reveals about our own neglected ambitions. Integrated goodness is therefore very different from performative goodness. The integrated person can be kind without becoming submissive. They can forgive without inviting repeated mistreatment. They can help without making themselves indispensable. They can disagree without experiencing disagreement as hatred. They can say no without constructing an elaborate excuse. They can admit, part of me wants recognition. Part of me is jealous. Part of me wants control. I am angry. I helped, but I also wanted appreciation. These admissions may feel uncomfortable, but they restore psychological choice. What we acknowledge can be examined. What we examine can be directed. What we deny directs us. Meeting the shadow. Shadow work often begins in ordinary moments. Notice when you say yes while your body is saying no. Notice when your kindness is followed by resentment. Notice when you repeatedly complain that others take advantage of you. Notice when your emotional reaction is much stronger than the immediate situation. Notice the people you judge most severely. Notice the qualities you insist you could never possess. Then ask yourself, what am I afraid would happen if I expressed my real feelings? What do I want but feel ashamed to request? Where am I using kindness to avoid rejection? Which boundary am I expecting someone else to establish for me? What quality in this person might also exist within me? The purpose is not self-condemnation. The purpose is greater honesty. The shadow is not proof that you are secretly evil. It is evidence that you are human. Conclusion. The opposite of the shadow is not goodness. It is consciousness. A person who appears good because they have never confronted their darkness is fragile. Their morality depends on avoiding situations that expose the parts of themselves they cannot accept. But a person who has encountered their anger, selfishness, envy, ambition, and capacity for aggression can make genuine moral choices. Their kindness is no longer based on fear. Their patience is no longer submission. Their generosity is no longer an invisible contract. Their forgiveness is no longer self-abandonment. They are capable of saying no, and this gives meaning to their yes. They are capable of confrontation, and this makes their peace authentic. They understand that psychological maturity is not the elimination of darkness. It is the ability to carry darkness consciously without allowing it to take control. The goal is not to become the perfect good person. The goal is to become a whole person. Because the goodness that comes from repression is fragile, but the goodness that has faced its own shadow has strength. The goal is not to become the perfect good person. The goal is to become a whole person. Because goodness built on repression is fragile, but goodness that has confronted its shadow possesses honesty, courage, and strength. So here is the question I want to leave with you. What part of yourself have you been repressing in order to maintain the image of being a good person? Share your reflection in the comments. Your answer may help someone else recognize the shadow they have been afraid to face.